entire world is celebrating the International Women's Day, and we are also doing the same, dedicating this particular event to millions of women who are involved in small and tiny enterprises, who on number of occasions have written and rewritten their success stories. In a substantial contribution to the economy of the country as well as their own household economy. So friends, at the SIDBI Center for Innovation in Financial Inclusion at IIM Lucknow, we have taken women entrepreneurship as one of the focus areas very recently, although primarily it was meant for only financial inclusion, which is again to help the women. Because the moment we talk about financial inclusion, the rural women who are excluded from the financial services, formal financial services. So taking one step ahead, we thought that also we should include the women entrepreneurship as one of the thrust area of the center, as one of the thrust area of IIM Lucknow also. So we started this, our journey of the center 2.5 years ago in a very small scale, and gradually we have included more and more startups, either working in financial inclusion or agri-tech or women entrepreneurship or rural livelihood. And therefore now we have a sizable amount of startups, around 25, which are in our fold, and all of them they are working in their own domain in one way or another way. So with this small background, once again I welcome all of you, all the participants, all our esteemed panelists, our director Professor Archana, and these panelists are involved in different organizations which are working towards the promoting the women entrepreneurship, or we have women entrepreneur in the panel also, which we will listen later on. So with these words, on behalf of the institute, on behalf of the center, and on behalf of my all colleagues, I welcome all of you for such meaningful deliberation in this very important event, which is going to take place in the next 2 hours. With this, can I request our director, Professor Archana, to have an inaugural address for this event. Madam, please.
Thank you, Professor Sanjeev, Professor Deepti, my other colleagues, and very distinguished panelists here. I could see Pallavi on the screen. Sometime I saw some other panelists also. But as we go along, we will hear them more. And it is a very proud privilege for me today to be present in this meeting and in this webinar, deliberating about the issues and challenges before the women entrepreneurs, because this is something which we have been talking about since ages. And when I look back and I see what has changed, so I do not find many answers, right? So even now, if you have to see one set of entrepreneurs, which Professor Sanjeev talked about, that microfinance, self-help groups, they came forward, they took responsibility, a lot of empowerment was possible. Therefore, in the lower socioeconomic strata, yes, there is a substantial visibility there. But when you look at in general, that how many women entrepreneurs have come to the fore, I think, it remains again a same kind that women are to be encouraged, women have to be empowered, women are suffering from so many syndromes, and therefore this does not happen, that does not happen. So there is a huge list, and I think much of it to do with the perceptual thing, because a lot of women, lot of people already have formed perceptions that women need this help, women need empowerment, and my take on empowerment is nobody can empower anyone, right? It is only the women who can empower themselves. If women look forward to someone else, that someone else will come and give them something and therefore empowerment will happen, it's not true, it's not going to happen. So I think maybe 4 5 years ago, I was involved by the SIDBI again in such a deliberation in Delhi. That time I was in Noida campus, and a lot of women entrepreneurs were there. And SIDBI's contribution in promoting women entrepreneurship is phenomenal, because they have been consistent in this, and they have been putting a lot of resources around this in generating resources for the women entrepreneurs. And that time also, one very significant thing emerged from the discussion. I was the moderator that time, and what I heard from the horse's mouth, and what to say from the women themselves who were into entrepreneurship, and they said that is still, when you go to approach a bank and you want financing, is still, if they see it's a woman entrepreneur, there is a stigma attached, right? And I said, my God, we have been talking about such great things about women entrepreneurship in the country, and even at the basic level, that we have not promoted this, and we have not encouraged this ecosystem to promote initiative led by the women entrepreneurs. So that is something which I will begin with, that the need is to create a very supportive ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, it also means not only the financial help, it could be technological help, it could be managerial help, it could be social help, it could be drawing upon each other's strength, it could be like maintaining a network of women themselves. And I think this was our intent when we, at IIM Lucknow, we started thinking about women entrepreneurship. We said, okay, women still need to find that network, and they need to have access to that network. Because of that network, the lot of support can be provided to each other. So as in the old literature, I was reading gender differences and all. So I will use the same term. They said it's an old boys network, and women have to make inroads into it, right? And lots of women entrepreneurs already exist in various capacities, doing very variety of businesses, because I have seen women doing hardcore, I'm using a word hardcore again, it can reflect somewhere my perception too, that not a soft businesses, but hardcore businesses, technology driven businesses, engineering driven businesses, manufacturing, and they have come to the fore and they are leading it successfully. But problem is that how many of them are there, and how many of them are able to take this network along. So a special effort has to be made by the platforms like Sci-Fi Center, maybe SIDBI promotions, maybe we have L Incubator at IIM Lucknow in Noida campus. Maybe with that help, maybe we need to get involved with the ministry, and we need to garner that support, all round support for the women executives, that what are the problems, where are the bottlenecks, what actually they are, where actual help is needed. Many people say that, okay, giving opportunity is a big problem. I see opportunities are enormous today. When Prime Minister has an intent of making India as the 5th largest economy in the country, and we are wanting to become the 5 trillion by next 5 years or 10 years. Now in that time frame, I think women constitute a very major portion of the economic development. And if we can somehow ignite that level of enthusiasm, that level of initiative among the women entrepreneurs, then you can imagine the kind of game changer it can be for all of us, because it's the silent majority still. There is a silent majority waiting out there. Sometimes there are internal hiccups, sometimes there are societal hiccups, sometimes the family support is not there. So we don't see too many women coming up unless they look forward to that kind of ensured surety in the business, or they only want to try out those businesses where the possibility of failing is less, and more conventional kind of, more traditional kind of businesses. And I think all these things have to go away, because business is a business, right? Women have to understand that we need to come forward and take that one step forward. It is the self-blocking belief which is counterproductive to all the women, rather than any ecosystem or any other agent in the development process. It's only the women who need to counter their perception that maybe some skepticism, maybe they are apprehensive, maybe some kind of, past experience drives them. So whatever it may be, but then the first step has to be taken by the women themselves, and then the whole system can come to your rescue. They can come to your, hand holding, and then the ecosystem can help you actually. So that is something which I found that very necessary for me to talk about, that women have to come out of their self caged kind of traditional business boundary and look for opportunities. Because when we look at Atmanirbhar Bharat, there are phenomenal possibilities. So nobody can see business is equal to opportunity and not existing or existing. There are opportunities and opportunities. It is up to you to lap it up. It is up to you to come forward and take initiative, and then look for support from the ecosystem. So that's something. Second thing which I found is that sometimes businesses are started, successful businesses are started by women, but at a juncture when they are looking at some kind of growth, some kind of acceleration, then sometimes they do not know how to accelerate the business. And that is when the real hand holding is required in order to give them access to maybe markets, maybe give them access to technology, give them access to the relevant partners, maybe give them access to other entrepreneurs, do a lot of mentoring or the hand holding. These are the kinds of, and help is a big support system, which again does not happen so easily. This is not only for women entrepreneurs. Let me also reiterate that this is true for even the your counterparts and the men entrepreneurs, because that acceleration, initial idea drives you, and everybody is excited about that idea. But after some time, when the growth has to happen, then I think all the even MSMEs, and you look at anybody, startups, then what you need is a different kind of techniques, different kind of exposure, different kind of risk taking. So this is again another area, that how to keep them going, how to set the momentum going, and how do we allow their businesses to grow from the beautiful intent and initial idea, which is a euphoria kind of idea in the beginning, and everybody goes into that business. So the realities of the business, any business, the thumb rules do not change, and they remain the same. So you need to deal with the market, you need to deal with the customer, you need to deal with professionals, you need to augment the team, you need to know how to manage your team, right? You need to make a lot of effort in that direction. There are phenomenal examples these days, like if you look at MPL, right? 2 years ago, nobody had heard this name, and look at where the MPL is today, right? MPL is much more known for their exponential growth, and not only in the Indian, national market, Indian market, but then also they are expanding fast in other markets. So that is the kind of growth acceleration process is needed, and therefore I think SIDBI supported centers, Sci-Fi, as well as a lot of incubators can become the platform and can provide that kind of timely support to the women. Another thing is that how many women are actually trained in becoming entrepreneurs. That again becomes a very important issue, that do they require a initial right kind of training to inculcate a right kind of mindset. Now that goes without saying, that yes, we need to create a lot of awareness. We need to also come forward and offer modules in such a manner where maybe they bring their ideas, and maybe a group of some dedicated focused team can be the mentors to them in order to start the business, right? Help them in starting a business. So that is the kind of competence building and augmenting the right kind of skill sets in the women entrepreneurs in order to take it forward. So I think I see a lot of promise. I see women forming 50% of the population, and my ambition is that when we have started seeing women in the leadership positions, and lot of women remain unseen, or we can say invisible, and they need to be brought to the forefront, so that now the right kind of examples are there, and enough motivation exists, and they can code. Because still, if you have to count how many women entrepreneurs come to your radar, if you have to think currently in India, number one, you will say, oh, Kiran Majumdar Shaw. Now, how long we will continue to only quote those kinds of, women entrepreneurs? Because now a new breed of women entrepreneurs has to emerge and is emerging. Now, let us start counting on those. Let us start creating another ecosystem, which is a parallel ecosystem, because it took long time for Kiran Majumdar Shaw to come to that level, right? But today's environment is so supportive that, different routes are available. Those kinds of challenges do not exist today exactly in the same manner. So today we need to start promoting and coming forward and take the opportunity. So I wish you all the best. I will not get going with my wishful thinking intention, and I am willing to provide the support. And when Professor Sanjeev said that we want to get the focus on women entrepreneurs, I said definitely we need to get there. We have a share, our share. I am Lucknow share in promoting women entrepreneurship. So we will continue to make our effort. Any idea is a bright idea. Please come back to us with any suggestion you want to give to us, so that we can implement and we can actually, be the torchbearer, be the catalyst in this kind of endeavor. So thank you very much for having me here. Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, Deepti. And thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for providing us the direction, the motivation, and the inspiration to move ahead. I think this was a wonderful start, setting the tone for the discussion, panel discussion. And I would like to also, first of all, thank each one of you, for each one of the panelists, for accepting our request and joining us today. So. We have with us Jayashree Vyasji. Jayashree Vyasji, I'm not sure if she has joined us. So I don't see her currently, okay, so how we are going to move ahead with the agenda right now is that we are going to invite each panelist to provide his or her perspective on the key questions related to the topic under discussion. And in the end, we will take up the questions from the participants. So, I would like to request Pallavi Tagji I would like to invite her to give her perspectives, and particularly with respect to the various government policies, like we have this Atal Incubation Center, startup policy, and we see a lot of incubators coming up with all these policies. However, the ecosystem for women entrepreneurs, if you see, in certain states like UP, it is not so developed as compared to Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, or Rajasthan. So this kind of situation, it provides a lot of opportunities and needs which need to be addressed by the funders, intermediaries, or the startups as such. So I would like to invite Pallavi to talk about the strategic interventions required to empower the women entrepreneurs, and particularly if she can talk about what are the challenges in building a strong startup ecosystem for women in tier 2 and tier 3 cities.
Sure. Thank you, Deepti, and thank you, Sci-Fi, and I'm Lucknow. Professor Archana and Professor Sanjeev, Professor Deepti, and others. And I would first like to congratulate you on taking this mission and vision to support more women entrepreneurs and women in general, and women in leadership. I think that's need of the hour, and more than that, I think the time has come. And let's all put our efforts together. When we have more women on the panel, it gives such a good feeling because it feels that we are almost there. And when I think the tone has been very rightly set by Professor Archana, and I resonate on almost everything that she said. First of all, before Deepti, if you allow me, I come to the questions. Let me give you a brief background of where I come from and my learnings from having worked with these women entrepreneurs and other entrepreneurs also in the last 4 years as a part of an incubation system. So Deepti, can I take 2 minutes maybe to give an orientation on where I come from, because that will set the context. So I come from an incubator, which is called CII Co, and its regional piece is in Rajasthan. And I'm glad, Deepti, you said that in Rajasthan, there is some activity and some movement happening, though we feel that we still have a long way to go. Definitely as compared with cities like Bangalore, Delhi, all those places, I'm sure we have a long, long, long way to go, but things are changing gradually and steadily. So we primarily work with these women entrepreneurs, either exclusively on programs which are dedicated to women entrepreneurs, or otherwise say social entrepreneurship or creative entrepreneurship, where we see a lot of women entrepreneurs taking a comfortable position in the ecosystem. So that's what I do. I take care of these programs, these interventions, which are specially designed for women entrepreneurs. And let me tell you one more thing, that in the last 2 years that we have worked with very closely with these women entrepreneurs, I don't know how much they have learned. I'm sure the outcomes are there. But we as an incubator have learned a lot, especially in terms of the theory of change. Because when we come as an incubator, we feel that this is tried, tested, sorted, and we only have to scale it up. But when it came to women entrepreneurs, we felt that we will have to unlearn a lot, exactly like probably our whole community and society and the whole ecosystem may have to unlearn a lot of things. To just cite an example, the most enterprising woman that I know, and friends, I'll leave you with this one term that has again come from my learning, again from these entrepreneurs. Let's humanize this place. Let's feminize this place. You know, when we talk about entrepreneurs, of course, the first thing that comes to our mind is not a female, until unless we're talking about women entrepreneurs. The picture is very masculine. And we have made it so overwhelming that, you know, you have to do this, you have to be a superpower, and you have to do that, and you have to become this, as if you are demanding her to change her own and complete identity. And that's not what is required. We demand this from women entrepreneurs because we can't change. Because the systems have been set by, primarily men, and they are not at this moment very fit and very comfortable for women entrepreneurs. And probably that's the race that we have created for them, that you have to reach somewhere. This is a bar that has been put in front of you, and this is where you have to reach, but there is no race at all, you know. So first thing is, let us humanize this space, let us feminize this place, let us have our own theory of change, if at all we can say that. And let us have our own unique way of leading rather than imitating either somebody already who is very accomplished or somebody who is a man and I can't relate with that person. So which means that in itself, it becomes very overwhelming for me to reach there. So one is that, and coming to Deepti, what you asked, what are those strategic interventions that probably we can do? One, definitely working on the social conditioning, and which comes from the entrepreneurs. As a woman entrepreneur, say for example, I also have a social conditioning and a society sitting in my head. And when I think about myself and my role and people's role, I have a certain conditioning there. And it's very difficult to come out of that immediately. It'll take some time for me to unlearn. So some of these barriers actually come from within, where I might underestimate myself, where I might think that I have to change myself completely in order to win. You know, the best example for me of an enterprising woman primarily probably is my grandmother. Not educated. She was a mother to 6 kids, and she would save each penny each day despite giving a comfortable life to her kids. Because she was not educated, she had no knowledge about numbers. But when she lost her husband, I would watch her every day in the afternoon when she would go for a nap. She would literally calculate on her fingers what are her FDs, how much money, when is each FD maturing, etc., etc. And handling everything. So why we're just talking about, say, a Kiran Majumdar or somebody who's very accomplished? I think these examples around us are enough for us to inspire and be comfortable in our own skin and take the pace, place, area, sector, methodology, leadership style that fits best to us as individuals, as women, you know. Now, coming to the role of an incubator that probably can be there in strategic interventions, one that we have been able to do, and I think that has been one of the important building blocks, is building this community where women are very comfortable. Their subconscious biases and dilemmas are actually handled on their own besides collaborations. You know, when they look at each other, especially in COVID times, it was so overwhelming and heartening to see that they were all supporting each other, and they all felt we are all sailing in the same boat. So whether it's a time of a disaster or even otherwise, when they come together, I'll cite an example. In the launch program, there was this one entrepreneur who asked this to the panel, this question to the panel, and she asked, you know, I'm doing a decent business and I'm doing 5 lakh a month, which is good. I left my corporate career to take up entrepreneurship. But you know, my problem is every day I have this guilt that I'm not being able to give enough time to my child, to my family. And believe you me, almost every woman entrepreneur undergoes such dilemmas. Whether she knows about it, she doesn't know about it, but when she's in this community and she's seeing other women, she's learning so much at a very, very subconscious level where her biases get challenged and sorted and resolved. You know, so that's one thing that we've been able to do, bringing all these women together, bringing this tribe together and strong, and rest magic happens on its own. You know, we don't have to do much in terms of community building. Of course, besides that, a lot of discipline has to come in, a lot of professional approach has to come in when it comes to an enterprise building, which is fine. And majority of the challenges come, you know, we all talk about the sticky ground. You know, it's very difficult to start something as a woman. Or we talk about the glass ceiling. You know, beyond a certain point, whether it's an organization you're working as an employee, or maybe you're seeking investments, you know, as an entrepreneur, it's very difficult to get that. But we hardly talk about the middle mess. And what we see is this mess everywhere. You've started a business, you're already called a rebel. You already have taken this responsibility on your shoulders to juggle and balance your personal professional lives. Interestingly, today also we also have a parallel, you know, session, and my team wanted to ask a female entrepreneur, how do you balance, you know, personal professional life? And I said, hello, you have another panelist, you know, who happens to be a male. Please ask this question to them. They need to answer these questions, not to women. You know, we don't have to be superwomen. Absolutely not. We don't have to juggle with all this. We'll never be able to reach anywhere unless we start focusing and having a good division of work at home and also at work. Because this is again one thing that we see, that women usually take it as a side hustle. I'm not talking about everyone. And that's why they try and become the CEOs. And CEOs here means Chief Everything Officer. I like to do everything on my own, you know, and that's not how business is going to be growing, you know. So all these hurdles, which are a part of the middle mess, are actually taken care of when incubators like Sci-Fi and others start working with these women entrepreneurs. And when these communities get formed, you know, most of the externalities, the positive externalities will come and embrace the program, embrace the cohorts, And there we don't have to do much, but this middleman definitely we need to do a lot, you know. And I'll not come to the challenges specific to the women because I think we know all of that. Now, what comes to a tier 2, tier 3 city, because I work specially in an area where, or as a part of the organization, or that wing of the organization that works specifically for regional incubation piece and regional ecosystem building. I think this is also a perception that tier 2, tier 3 cities are not the flourishing or fertile grounds for entrepreneurship. Let's compare, say, a Jaipur with a Bangalore. If I have to establish a tech company, definitely Bangalore may look like a hub because the resource people are there, human capital is there, you know, IT, of course, agree completely. Exposure is there. There is a pace, interaction with the customers, interaction with investors is there. Any new innovation will be tried and tested in these cities. So you are ahead of others, you know. But as part of a tier 2, tier 3 city ecosystem and building these systems, definitely these are the hurdles. And that's the mission that we have, that we're going to build tomorrow's startup capitals, you know. And these capitals are not the ones that already are in metros, but in tier 2, tier 3 cities. And these have their own benefits, you know. One, given that now most of it is online, no, businesses are happening online. We can work, and COVID has taught us, and probably we are now 3 to 4 years ahead in just a span of 8 to 9 months, as probably it would have taken us to reach there in terms of technology adoption, both on the customer side and also on the, you know, supplier side or the entrepreneur side. So I think going online has changed a lot for all of us, as incubators, as entrepreneurs, as customers, as investors, as suppliers, as artisans, as farmers, you know, all of them, you know, from the beneficiary side to the each part of the value chain is actually now changing and changing for better. And that's how tier 2, tier 3 cities are now going to gradually get better placed. Secondly, I think incubators like Sci-Fi and others are coming up, and they are working in these less you know, served areas and less served segments. I think their role is really, really important. Besides organizations like, say, TIE and others, which is actually whole of an ecosystem. But just to sum it up, that yes, tier 2, tier 3 cities will take some time to grow, but there are merits. For example, it's much more economic to have your team and your infra in a tier 2, tier 3 city as compared with having the same in a metro, say like a Bangalore. It'll be really, really expensive. The new age business, which is primarily going online in every way, even especially from the customer side, allows us to stay here and still work and be fine in terms of progress made. And yes, incubators are definitely making those inroads and creating those ecosystems, catalyzing those ecosystems, government policies, as Deepti asked. We have now Atal incubation centers, we have government incubators, we have you know, funding opportunities, etc., which are not specific to cities, you know, they are open for all. So I think working from anywhere, regardless of which city you come from, definitely certain merits here, but certain merits there as well. So that will be the long and short of the answers that I have to share here, Deepti. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pallavi, for sharing your the personal stories and also telling us some wonderful ideas like you know, the social conditioning that is required, the dilemmas which need to be dealt with, and the discipline is required for success in the entrepreneurship domain. And yeah, I like this CEO thing, chief everything officer is what usually that happens. And of course, your ideas regarding tier 2 and tier 3 cities, the advantages that these cities provide, definitely there is a lot of opportunity here to capture, really. So thank you, Pallavi. So moving ahead, we have with us Samina ji, founder and CEO Rightwork Foundation. Now, generally, what we find is that women entrepreneurs are active in social areas. And also, we find that the sectors where we find most of the women entrepreneurs could be like health, clean energy, food and nutrition, zero waste, education, cosmetics. So what are the important skills really required for succeeding as a woman social entrepreneur? And if you would invite Samina ji to talk about what would be the right business model as well for a social woman entrepreneur, is it charity or sustainability?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor Deepti. That's actually a very good question, and I really enjoyed what Pallavi ji just spoke about, and I think you pretty much spoke my heart. And a lot of things I very strongly concur with. And being a social entrepreneur myself and running an organization for the past 7 years actually, so I could relate with a lot of things that you said. So thank you very much for that conversation. And thank you, I'm Lucknow. Thank you, Sci-Fi and professors who have invited me for this conversation. So talking about the skills in social entrepreneurship. So first thing I would like to highlight, the skills required for social entrepreneurship are not very different from what you know. In fact, it sometimes gets even more difficult, and your skills have to be a little bit on the higher side, because you're not generating revenue. You're not really, and not in all the cases you are generating revenue. You have to cater to your customers, if I may call them, the people we work with. At the same time, you should also raise resources. That they're like running two businesses together. Is at one time, at one side, you have to keep talking to your donors, keep generating grants and getting funds into the organization, and at the same time, you are catering and working with the beneficiaries and the customers you're working with. It's like running two parallel things at the same time. The revenue is not really coming from the sale of any product that you are selling. So I'm not saying that the entrepreneurship is easy. I mean, they have their own challenges. Social entrepreneurship has their own challenges there too, but then the skill sets that you require are pretty much similar. So I would categorize these skill sets into two categories. So one is the technical skill set, which I think when Pallaviji already spoke about. You do need certain technical skill sets. You need to know the people management skills. You need to have the accounting, the organizational, the compliance and marketing and sales and everything. You got to know all those technical skills. These skills you can learn in your B schools. I mean, I'm Lucknow and the incubators. I'm also a product of IIM. So I'm from IIM Bangalore. So these schools actually equip you with a lot of these technical skills. So those are good. I think it doesn't really differentiate between men and women. The other skills I'll speak about, which I believe are much more important, the attitude level skills, the soft skills, and skills at the which comes from within, and you have to develop and hone inside. And these are not the skills which are taught in a school. These are something which you have to build within yourself. Those attitude level skills are very important. Women, and there's several evidence, several bodies of evidence which shows how women, girls in schools, they perform really well. However, when they complete schooling, they come to college, and beyond college, the participation in the workforce or in the entrepreneurship or any other area which is male dominated, you find a sudden drop in women participation. And that majorly happens because the way women are groomed when they are kids. The women are taught as something they are or they are not. They are intelligent or they are not intelligent. They are hardworking or they are not hardworking. They can do something or they cannot do something. They're good at maths or they're not good at maths. So they tend to believe those things. They tend to internalize those things, that I can either do math. If I can't do, I can just not do it at all. And men on the other side, the boys on the other hand, if they're not doing very well in maths, they will be told, oh, by the way, if you work hard, you will do better. This is not how our girls are groomed. Boys tend to think, oh, if I work hard, I can accomplish it. So if I try a little harder, I can accomplish it. And there is evidence that women tend to apply for any opportunity only if they're 100% sure they are fit for it. They have all the skills and capabilities to actually accomplish it. And men tend to apply even if they have just 50% of the skills and resources available. So even if they're not sure whether they can actually do something, they will still apply for it. They're like, let's apply, and once I get it, I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. That kind of belief that men have, our women are lacking somewhere, and they still they're scared. They tend to they're less risk taking, and then tend to venture into it only when they have 100% faith and belief that they have all the resources and skills, otherwise they will not get into it. So, and that comes from grooming. It's not about difference between men and women as such. It's about how you are groomed, what you are made to believe as a child. And I think that plays a very important role. And for me, what really was different, as a child, it was, there were so many things I was told I could not do, but I tried. I mean, when everybody went to sleep, I just thought, let me just try it. I used to just sneak out and try those things, and I was able to do it. And that gave me faith and belief that if I try, things can happen. I surprised myself. And I think that was transformational in my case. So I pretty much went into things, I took risks and got into things which I had absolutely no clue I would ever be able to do or not. Because when you jump into it, then things keep on, you can't foresee everything right upfront. If I'm working on some particular policy, I worked on right to education policy. When I started with it, I had no clue how will I reach the end. What are the ways? What I had never imagined in my, wildest of dreams, that I'll have to fight court cases in High Court, Supreme Court. I'll have to take on some mafias, and this happen will that will happen. I had no clue, but I still went into it because I had that belief that if I try, I'll figure it out. And that is something which is, we are not teaching our girls. And this belief inside you, within you, that you can do it, even if you do not have all the resources and skills, you can do it. And I think that's one of the most important thing to have. Apart from that, you also need to be aware that there are some subconscious level gender biases which are existing. So everybody will claim that, oh, we are not biased. We do not differentiate between men and women, but it's so much at the subconscious level that we exhibit it and we do not even realize that we are exhibiting it. And everyone, men, women, or both, in fact, many times you will get these kind of subconscious biased behavior from women much more from men. So and we don't even realize we are exhibiting it, exhibiting those biased behavior. There's a very beautiful book I would really love people to read. It's called Biased. She talks about how the similar, similar CVs without any names. You don't write names, just say, put some numbers 1, 2, 3, and you send those CVs to companies. The number of men and women who get selected would be pretty much the same. You just name those CVs, exactly same profile. Suddenly, the proportion of number of women getting selected just comes down to half. Simply by looking at the name as a woman, you had immediately decided, oh, she wouldn't be as good, or she will have 100 tons of problems, and she's not the right candidate. And it's exactly the same CV. You just, you're priming that person with a name, and that person wouldn't even realize that you're actually, exhibiting that kind of a biased behavior. So I think it's important to understand those biases so that you can work around them. So I had read a lot, about these biases and what could have really, what this person might be exhibiting in his or her behavior subconsciously, and how I can work around it. So, I could, identify it, and without even pointing it out or anything, I would just communicate my way around it and navigate my way around it. So I think that is important. And these subtle skills are actually important. And third, according to me, is how you show up. So if you are showing up, and this is something I've seen so many times, you meet someone and you are applying for a funding, and you meet someone and you start with very meek language, body language, which is like a very constricted body language. Hello, sir, I'm Samina. The response would be very different. However, if I just go and start with a broad body language, confident body language, and a low pitched voice, not the low pitch, basically a little heavy voice, and I would say, hello, good morning, sir, I'm Samina, and then I start, the impact would be very different. How you introduce that few first seconds, decide how the conversation is going to go in the next 1 hour or 30 minutes or whatever it is. And that makes a lot of difference. I've made a lot of changes simply by, just introduction line can make a lot of difference. Just how you start your conversation. So I think those skills are quite important, the belief in yourself, the confidence. I think if you bring those things into you, technical skills though you can learn easily. You're equally good. So according to me, these are the skills. But if you have anything else, any specific questions beyond that, I would be happy to answer.
Thank you, Samina, for your insights, for your perspectives. Really, the most interesting part was like the show up and the body language part, right? We're talking about always the technical skills or the challenges, maybe the finance or the networking, but we don't talk about the basic things. Right? So thank you so much, Samina. Uh, so I will move ahead. So welcome Jayashree ji and Ravindra ji. Thank you so much for coming over and joining us. So I would like to invite Jayashree Vyas ji, who's the Managing Director, Seva Sahikari Bank, to talk about the lack of financial access. We know that we have number of government schemes and initiatives currently, but still a large amount of India's population is unbanked, especially if you have poor households, right? So also we know that the biggest hurdle inhibiting the poor women's participation in businesses is access to finance. So if I would like to invite Jayashree Vyasji to tell us about that, what innovations are needed to improve the access to finance for poor women, and what is the status of financial literacy amongst the poor women, and what intervention is needed to create more awareness about these financial instruments. Jayashree, you are on mute.
So good afternoon. I'm sorry I'm late. My experience with women who have come from a job work to an entrepreneur, and that's basically because we have been working with informal sector workers, but they are self-employed. So eventually, they do get some kind of enterprises, I would say, or they can become entrepreneurs at that level. So when you're talking about challenges of finance, and initially they have to start with even the financial inclusion part of it, that how to get into a bank. That basically is the biggest hurdle. Now of course those hurdles are not that much. The second thing is also that because the way they have been working, they have many of the problems of collateral which is not available to them also, in spite of they being an entrepreneur. They are like entrepreneur, but they're doing food processing and those kinds of activities where it is not much possible that they have big huge kind of even if there are securities or collaterals, those collaterals are not enough, which is making them bankers satisfied that yes, we can provide this kind of finance. The third thing, the biggest challenge which we are seeing is that everybody is asking for business plan or even accounts. And what we have seen is that they are not, I mean, they are maintaining some kind of accounts, but it is not the kind of accounts, or preparing a business plan is the biggest thing which they have. And this is something which they're not been able to even understand this. They are normally they are not even planning for more future. This is something. So when you're talking about the digital literacy, I think before that we need to provide them basic financial literacy. And once that basic financial literacy is provided, then we can, I'm sorry. Hello?
Yes, Jayashree, we can hear you.
Yeah, okay, I can't see you, anybody. So there's some problem here. So this is something which, that first basic financial literacy is provided to them. Then the second thing is that, that for entrepreneurs, some kind of entrepreneurship kind of, literacy is also to be given to them. You won't believe, I think, sometimes we have to start with kind of literacy that, that how can you, the first is what kind of business you're doing, like is it trading or processing or even only just job work kind of work. The second thing then which we have to add into is that that how can you make this value addition, because if they are doing some small business, then how can you add value addition. Then the third is, accounting. Many of these women, we have seen that, they're good entrepreneurs. They have, and they have been living in crisis, from crisis to crisis. So they have understood how they can even deal with crisis. That is not a challenge for them. But for them, the challenge is that, how can they expand their business more? This is a challenge for them. And for that, and as I already said, that, there is a need for understanding, the kind of business which they are doing. This is, as I said, it is trading, or it is just processing, or doing on contract basis. The second thing is that, they have to understand that, what is the business cycle, and what is the, how can you link them with your money cycle, or cash flow. So cash flow, dealing with cash flow is also sometimes very important, but they are not able to really manage this properly. Finally, when they come to that, then they, even often we have seen that, they are not making accounts, and inventory is not also kept properly. And once when we are asking them, they are saying we are very scared of writing accounts, or asking anybody else to write those accounts. So that explaining them, and maybe giving them a training about how the books of accounts are maintained. Often, maybe, I don't know, but they are worried about, or they are scared of not keeping accounts, is maybe because they are scared that whether they will be able to, maybe they will have to pay tax. Even they don't know, whether they will have to pay tax or not. So one of the literacy which we have been giving to them is that when you have to pay tax, and what kind of different kinds of taxes are there, and how, whether you are eligible, you have to give tax or not, that also they don't understand. Then of course business plan, and then feasibility report. Going to a bank and going with a feasibility report is something which is which is impossible for them to do it. So these are the small challenges I am saying. Maybe it is not, I'm not talking about any bigger entrepreneurs. I'm talking about very small entrepreneurs. We're trying to work with them on this. And the second thing, yes, yes, digital literacy. I think in digital literacy is much better. Explaining them to digital literacy is much better than what we have seen even into getting finance. Because in digital literacy, what we have seen is that one thing is that that because they have they see, when we are even talking about some, start with, say, RuPay card. This, then initially what they understand is that yes, this is something which is, I'm an entrepreneur, and for me, my time is very important. And when they see that yes, when we are using this small, even smallest small things about ATMs and SMS, then they are saying, they are seeing that one thing is that they are saving their time, which is very helpful. They are saving their cost. That's also very helpful. It also gives them a little bit of self-confidence that I can also do it independently. I can do it. So in this, so once they understand this, and then the other different types of digital, even now we have seen that even the mobile digitally, mobile transactions, they have started doing it. UPI also they have understood, and they are doing it. But in terms of business, one thing which we have seen is that if they are doing marketing things, and so they are using even the smallest thing, Facebook, maybe, they are just doing this. So Facebook is not for that marketing, but still they will still do it. But the other thing which we have also seen is that if a mother is an entrepreneur, but she doesn't know much of the digital uses, but her daughter, she understands her daughter, and then her daughter is helping her to at least market her products, or to learn from the daughter that how can she can do digital transactions. This is, we have always seen, it is not that others are giving them training, but their daughters or sons are giving them this kind of trainings, which is very informal, I say. But we are always working in informal sector, so I can say this kind of thing also. But what I have seen is that, because since last 2 years, we have been working in the area of providing digital literacy for in case of both the transaction based as well as for the business. And what we are seeing is that there is a great opportunity for this, because they are, they are good, because they are, I don't know, because they are doing some kind of businesses. They understand this in spite of they being illiterate. We have seen that, they very quickly understand, because ultimately they are just they're doing it, functional. They know these functional things, functional steps they see, and then they immediately work on it. I'll just give you one example of, if I have time, I'm not going. Hello.
Yes, Jashriji, you have time. Yeah, please go on.
Okay. So, we had 2 or 3 examples. One example was that when there was a, that was the time when, sorry. Anyway, I'll just see that, when we started working with digital applications and others, and we ourselves were just starting and testing it. At that time, we were testing, but when they had they had in their hand RuPay card, and they could see that, this RuPay card, at that time that, I forgot that. Oh, I'm so, so at that time, anyway, I've forgotten what time it happened, but what happened was that, they were seeing that, the RuPay card was used only for ATM. That's what we had done, but they had seen that through these cards they are also able to use it for, in going in, say for example, V-Mart, and get their food grains, or for petrol, and we can also use for that. So they immediately started doing it even before we even started, we were just testing it. So even UPI also, the latest one is UPI. When UPI came in, and we were even doing reconciliations in our own bank, and then we saw that there were so many transactions coming. So they are, I would say they are so smart that they would learn it much better and much faster than even we think.
Thank you so much, Jashriji, for I think the examples that you shared for digital literacy. It's really very interesting that, in fact, we see it around ourselves as well. That we teach our parents sometimes that how to use that the new generation is teaching the older generation the use of the digital technology. So definitely, it's very interesting. Thank you so much, Jashriji. I would like to now invite Ravinder Singh ji, who's the General Manager, SIDBI. Now, SIDBI has been demonstrating a lot of scalable pilot projects, and there are many learnings that have been gathered, which can be used to empower the women micro entrepreneurs, which are particularly positioned at the bottom of the pyramid of the value chain. So I would invite Ravinder Singh ji to tell us more about the convenience for the woman to get loan or grant from SIDBI. And how is the scheme Swavalamban, that is the Bechan Sapno Ko Pank with a tagline, how is that providing women livelihood opportunities and contributing to Atmanirbhar Bharat? Yeah, so I think there is a technical issue and it should be resolved. Sham, can you please unmute Ravinder Singh ji?
Yeah, now it is unmuted. So thank you. Am I audible?
Yes, yes, Ravinder Singh ji.
Yeah. So good afternoon, everybody. And sorry I joined late because I was in another program which we do. It's a series for women which we do with the Confederation for Women Entrepreneurs. This is on Stand Up India. So let me start from Mission Swawalamban, which Dipti mentioned. So SIDBI has transited in last 3+ years to a vision which is 2.0. And here what we have picked is 3 I's, which are, one is being inclusive, and that means having thrust on women. Second is being innovative. So whatever approaches R&D are required to be done to make access easier, we are working on it. And third is whatever we do is it has to be measurable, the impact wise, and that is what a change we have got into the mission. The SIDBI has been running Poor State Inclusive Growth Program through DFID support in 4 states, and it was largely women-centric programs in which we evolved many models which we could test. And this we have documented in a handbook on women entrepreneurship. One can easily access these on SIDBI website. So last say 2 years we adopted Mission Swawalamban. This is an umbrella mission for all our programs in promotion and development, and that carries a theme of Har Ghar Ek Swawalambi, each house one entrepreneur. So can we do that? For that we weave a sort of a strengthening of ecosystem both on financial and non-financial side. So that is what we have been doing. And when we adopted this, we also became consciously aware that if this has to be done, 3 key role models need to be touched. The first is the parents, and within that mother. And second is the primary school teacher. And third is the college teachers and mentors. Now, this is the stage by which if the seeds of entrepreneurship or its cultural attributes are sown, I think are fed into, I think the new next gen can really be looking at becoming a Swawalambi, which is an entrepreneur. So we have been moving for this. Now, when we picked up that mother is very important, so we started. We had a partnership with the Usha Silai School, and we have set up 1,700 Swawalamban Silai schools in around 6 states. Reaching out to like each village we pick up, we set up one Silai school. The idea is that these women who are trained and handed over with a stitching machine with all training and all are supposed to evolve as a not only as a master trainer but as a vocation. They should take it forward. You all will be happy to know that all these 1,700 were operational even during COVID times. That is what we have been tracking them. And what we did is we quickly, and that is what they bring and add on. They could easily move to making masks and aligning themselves to the market changes which was happening. Recently, we onboarded 47 of these on a e-market initiative where we pitched these bottom of pyramid, I call it homepreneurs, on this platform where there were all well-to-do women entrepreneurs who were there. And they thought, how do we fare with them or fare along with them? But you would be happy that with their qualitative product, they could give a tough fight. One. Second is the nuances of onboarding these, they could learn and we could resolve it as and when, like, for example, we told you should be on WhatsApp. So everybody came on WhatsApp. Then they should know the e-payment mechanism. They all quickly picked up. Then how do you go for packaging and other things? So, and yesterday there was a program at national level. Two of them got awarded. The way they picked up the nuances of doing it better way. So when we were doing PSIG initiative, and which is now converted into a Swalambhan resource facility, which we are operating with the help of DFID UK team, which is now FCDO, we could realize that financial literacy alone, which we did through multiple methods being adopted. One was even taking mobile vans to the doorstep of villages and creating literacy. But then we realized that FinLit has to logically conclude into Credit Connect. And this is what now we have transited this mission from FinLit to Credit Connect. And we are happy that the National Financial Literacy Vision document of NCFE, National Center for Financial Education, picks up this Credit Connect as an important thing which needs to be addressed. So you will be happy. Let me talk about Stand Up India Mission, which is which give like access to women and SC/ST. It's a very unique scheme which was launched in 2016 by Honorable Prime Minister. Now it runs right up to 2025. Each bank branch in the country have been given a target to do one women loan and one SC/ST loan. And if you take 1.25 lakh bank branches in the country, 1.25 lakh minimum women enterprises have to come up in greenfield. Now, till date, there are 1.1 lakh enterprises which have been supported under the initiative, and around 80% are women enterprises. And within, we run a portal, Stand Up Mitra portal, and anybody, anytime can access and get access to any bank branch across the country. Everybody is mapped there only. So one can choose their bank branch, one can choose handholding agency, they can help them. I was listening to Madam Jayashree ji, she was mentioning about handholding aspects. So we have created a pool of handholding agencies also on the portal. Besides that, like we had a volunteer group within SIDBI of women officers who have been like sort of voluntarily helping, or I would say finger holding these aspirants. So the moment somebody logs on the portal and mentions that she is a women aspirant, immediately a pop-up will guide them that there is a women officer available to help you. And it is, see, the most important thing is when you are trying to onboard unknown territory, if somebody can tell Main Hoon Na, why don't you do? I think so that is what we try to do through the portal. And besides Silai School, like we have worked with, there was an initiative we took for 10,000 women in Eastern UP, which is Mahila Udyam Sashakti program. And then once they came out and became entrepreneur, their Credit Connect was materialized. We brought them to a forum in Varanasi where we had an exhibition of these, say, some of these picked up women. They were around 700. And they celebrate, and we call it Swalambhan Utsav, where they celebrated being an entrepreneur. So it was basically an utsav of becoming an entrepreneur. And then we invited college students from nearby and public to witness how these women are exhibiting the passion. And so that is what like we have been working out on this front. Presently, we have like set up, it's a 1-year initiative which got a bit derailed due to COVID. We have set up Swalambhan Connect Kendras. in 5 states. There are 100 centers we have set up. So the system is very simple. Anybody can give a missed call to a number for like these 5 states, and immediately that central hub will connect it to the respective district which is adopted. So if it is emanating from particular district, immediately that link will happen to that, and a call will come to the aspirant that yes, what are you looking for? And so the idea is that, as I mentioned, the finger holding, hand holding, and then making them make business plan, like getting skilled, connecting them to right skilling centers, and then connecting them to the banker, as also working with the banker to create that confidence that somebody who is coming through this RO, I call it reverse osmosis system, it would have a better acceptability because it has already gone through a filtering exercise. We have also initiated in during COVID times a SHE initiative, which is sanitation and hygiene entrepreneurs. We started through one of lead NGOs in South, and that initiative is started in 3 states within COVID time, has now picked up in 21 states, and it started with the women-centric initiative. We have been working with few of rural livelihood missions at state level. We worked intensively with the Bihar mission Jivika, and now we are picking the nuances and trying to replicate it in 4 more states. So these are broadly the initiatives like we are doing under our mission Swalamban, while connecting them to market, organizing Swalamban Bazaar. These are initiatives which we have been continuing. And now with this budget announcement where Stand Up India mission has been expanded to cover agri-allied activities, as also the promoter contribution has been brought down from 25 to 15%. I think it's a win-win for women entrepreneurs looking up the value chain. So today, besides Udyami Mitra, Stand Up Mitra, we also power the street vendor scheme PM Swanidhi through digital access. It is powered through SIDBI Udyami Mitra. We also power the Animal Husbandry Infrastructure Development Fund through portal. SIDBI has also led the initiative of setting up PSB loans in 59 minutes, which has reached out to more than 2.5 lakh entrepreneurs, which would obviously include women also. I don't have ready figure out there, but the idea is those who are better governed, they should get faster access to loans. So we have made it, it's a 59 minutes journey. If somebody is maintaining GST, doing say net transaction, net banking, filing income tax regularly, they can get access to not only the quick in principle, they get also empowerment by having, see, one cannot remember, one cannot reach to banks, every bank, and then one cannot know the products everybody offers in a different way. So there are 450 products of different banking partners, lenders, which are mapped, and as per expectations enlisted by the aspirant, it gives the best fit option. So the idea is that instead of running around, they get best option at one place. Now this is being extended to Mudra also. It has already started, and say anyone who is existing and in Mudra segment and looking for step up support, I think facility is available. So the idea is a lot of work is going on, whether it is through incubation front or on startup front or on stand up front or stepping up initiatives. SIDBI is trying to weave a ecosystem. We have also set up recently project management unit in 11 states to strengthen their MSME delivery ecosystem. And there also we have put 2 expert team in each state. the idea is that can we contribute or facilitate the strengthening of the system. So this is quickly from my side. I'm open to any expectations of the participants, which I would like to answer whenever it comes up. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ravindra Singh ji. I think you have given quite a detailed answer and your perspective on the SIDBI initiatives and schemes that are being taken up. In fact, a lot of participants had asked questions regarding the same, that to elaborate on some of the SIDBI initiatives for women entrepreneurs. So thank you so much, Ravindra Singh ji. And we will now move ahead. We'll invite Disha, founder Zookbag, to give her perspective. We see that apart from the problem of access to finance, there are other issues also which hold back women entrepreneurs, and which we have been talking for the last 1.5 hours. That there is gender bias, absence of support networks, skewed social norms, restricted mobility, and so on. And it's also seen, that the skills, education, and age of a woman is more closely scrutinized most of the times compared to that of men. So I would like to invite Disha to talk about the difficulty a woman faces to balance her work and family priorities, and how to deal with the social stigma attached with women entrepreneurship.
Hi, thank you so much, Sci-Fi. I'm Lucknow and Professor Dipti for inviting me for the discussion. Hope I am audible.
Yes, you're audible.
Perfect. It's an amazing topic to talk about on International Women's Day. By the way, happy Women's Day to everyone. So a lot of respected and far more experienced speakers have shared their views on a very relevant topics, right? So I'm going to add some of my thoughts and share my journey in this discussion, right? My focus will, as Professor Dipti, you were also saying, that would be mostly on the role of women entrepreneurs in making Bharat Atmanirbhar and all the challenges that women entrepreneurs face when they start, right? So recently I was reading one study from Economist which said that only 7% of the urban Indian women have jobs, right? When I read that, I was very surprised, right? Like, we are talking about urban Indian women, not about all the women in India, right? Like, only the urban Indian women, and that is under 10%, right? And as a nation who believes that you have a demographic dividend advantage, which is basically you have a sizable population which is very young and ready to join the workforce. It is very surprising, right? And in fact, in today's corporate world, we see women being equally capable, if not more, of creating the impact on the work that they do, right? And so if 7% are only doing jobs, or they are doing paid jobs, right, then in my opinion, I feel that India is not tapping into a very vast resource, right? As Director Madam also said in the beginning, right? Like, we have to have more women in the workforce, right? And this study that I was reading was very alarming for me, right? So I would like to share few of the things that I have gone through in my entrepreneur journey, right? I will begin with saying that being a startup founder is no longer uncool, right? Few years back it was, right? But in fact, it is now being it's cool to own your own startup, right? In fact, India is in among the top 3 and 5 countries, 3 to 5 countries in the world in terms of the number of startups, right? So when I started, right, it was very reassuring, and I was very happy that I'm joining that bandwagon, right? But it is very surprising that there are very few women entrepreneurs, right? The number of women entrepreneurs among all the startup founders is extremely low. I think it will be in single digit, if I'm not wrong, right? And the bigger surprise than this was that there are very few female who are making products for women, right? So it, like, when you see the statistics, it was very alarming that even though the number of startups in India are growing, the contribution of women entrepreneurs is still very low in this whole sector, right? In fact, I was also thinking that one of the biggest reasons that Silicon Valley in US is the Silicon Valley is because they have a very good ecosystem of founders around them, right? And that is one thing which is, you know, highly lagging in India, right? Like we don't find a lot of women entrepreneurs who can guide the budding entrepreneurs, right? In fact, I was very lucky that, you know, I got someone, Vinita Singh, who's the founder of Sugar Cosmetic, and, you know, she has guided me early on in my initial days, and like she's my same senior from Ahmedabad. You know, she really helped me a lot, right? And I feel that if we have a system like that, or if we have more and more women founders, right, who can help each other, that will really add a lot of value, and that will give a lot of confidence to you know, women to step up and start their own businesses. Because, you know, that there is not only professional challenges that you face when you are a woman founder, but personal as well, right? Okay, you know, startup hai to, you know, should, like, you know, as you were saying, Professor Dipti, that, you know, for us the age is also seen very closely, right? Okay, you know, 30 mein shaadi hona chahiye. In fact, earlier 28 mein shaadi hona chahiye, by 30 you should have a kid, and so on and so forth, right? So you also have these numbers also to track apart from your revenue numbers, right? So if you have somebody who can guide you, somebody who has gone through your journey, that extremely helps. Like, you know, Vinita has been a guiding force for me throughout these you know, couple of years that I have been running my startup. And, you know, I feel more and more women founders, if they come up, they can help, you know, cultivate that breed of new women founders as well, right? In fact, at Zook, we have, you know, 50% plus women are employees, right? And they you know, they run different domains, right? They're into sales, they're into marketing, they're into customer experience design, and so and so forth, and they do a terrific job of that, right? And I'm very happy that they are the part of Zook's journey, right? Like, most corporations don't have those many representation from the women, right? But as a startup, it was easy for me to make that change, right? Given that, you know, I don't have any history, right? So I can make my own culture, right? And that is what women founders also bring onto the table, right? They can help get more and more females come to join, you know, join in the workforces, right? So, you know, women founders don't not only have a responsibility for growing their businesses, but also, you know, growing other females, right? Like, be it hiring, you know, female employees in different domain, or getting funding from, you know, institution which help females, right? So, or guiding other females, right? So, you know, women entrepreneurs have a lot more responsibility than usually any entrepreneur has, right? I'm hoping that, you know, so I do a lot of on and off consulting to a lot of budding women entrepreneurs, and I want, like, you know, in future I can guide more women founders, and I feel that more and more women founders should get into this. They should coach other females, not only in entrepreneurship, but, you know, anything, like, you know, be it marketing, how to handle personal, professional, any domain, right? Like, any kind of help will be, you know, very, very helpful, I would say, right? And that is how it will bring the change, right? You know, in like, we as a nation have to hit a 5 trillion economy, right? And that is a massive vision that we have. And to get there, I feel we need to, you know, unlock this vast amount of talent, which is ambitious, which is hardworking, courageous women, and bring them into the workforce, right? And that is, you know, that is how actually we will also become Atmanirbhar in a lot of sense, right? And I feel that you know, all this is possible if few things comes together, right? A is that, you know, women entrepreneurs have to guide more women founders, which, you know, I've been speaking for last 2-3 minutes, if not more, right? Second is that, you know, institutions institutions have to help the companies, right? Like, for example, my first order at Zook website came from one of my batchmates from IMA. In fact, our first bulk order, we got it from IMA CIE, which is the entrepreneurship cell of IMA, right? And I think they bought it for Teachers Day gifting, right? So institutions or family, friends, your support system has to help you initially grow, right? Because that is extremely important, and it gives you that assurance and that extra confidence that as a woman entrepreneur you need, right? Third would be, bank must support women founder, as Ravinder sir was saying that there are so many schemes that SIDBI is coming up with, right? Like similarly, more and more banks should get into it and should support women entrepreneurs. Like after all, enterprises like Legit Papad or Mrs. Bector's Food were built by women, right? And they got financial support very initially, right? And they have built this massively profitable and socially responsible businesses, right? So more and more banks should trust women entrepreneurs and come forward and support them in their journey, right? And lastly, the most important bit, right, which I think Director Ma'am also said, okay, nobody is going to come and help us, right? We are the one who have to believe that we can do it, and then only it is going to happen. Like, I truly resonate with that thought. If not, like, I strongly believe in that thought, right? So it is like nobody else is going to tell you that go for it, do it, and so on and so forth, right? It, like, the responsibility is yours to believe that you can do it, and then build an ecosystem around you which can help you achieve your dreams, right? So I think all of this has to come together, and most importantly, female have to have a self-confidence in whatever they do, right? And as an entrepreneur, you always worry about failure, right? Like, I still worry about failing in something or the other, right? But some self-confidence, help from your family, friends, a support ecosystems really help to in your times of ups and downs. Like, a startup founders has a lot. In fact, in a day, if you ask a startup founder, "Yaar, kaisa din ja raha hai?" They cannot say it's a good or bad, because in the day itself they have seen so many ups and downs, right? So it is very important to have a good support system with you, right? And we have to ensure that we take responsibility for our own future and our own growth, right? And we have to believe more than anybody else in this world that you can do it, right? And that is, I think, that has in fact made me also go through a lot of ups and downs in the journey I had till date, right? So like, in fact, and for this Women's Day, we at Zook, we did a lot of campaigns around that we can do it. We did not say celebrate or uncelebrate or anything like that. We were more focused upon that have self-confidence, have self-belief. You have so many attributes which are so super fit for being an entrepreneur, right? Like, you have the hard skill as well as the soft skills, right, to build a large organization. So we centered around it, and our whole campaign was about, like, we can do it types, right? So yeah, so this is what I feel is very important for women entrepreneurs to believe in themselves, and second, when they believe and then they create more and more job opportunities for other people, they have to bring more female workforce into the picture, right? There will always be struggles. If I start saying about my struggles, it will, I think the whole session will go on. In fact, we'll take more time, right? So just picking up few of them, when I started off, so I Zook owns its own manufacturing unit, right? And manufacturing is not something which is considered as a female oriented or suited domain, right? It was very difficult for me to convince people to work for me, right? Like, finding that karigars from Dharavi or renting out place for production and all, was extremely difficult for me. I got a lot of rejections in the beginning before that first person said yes to me, right? And but now we have more than 80 plus carriers in our production unit. And in fact, people now want to come out of Dharavi and work for us, right? So things will change, things will improve, right? Till, you have confidence in yourself, right? Otherwise, like whosoever keeps on saying it, it's not going to matter, right? You will be facing challenges. We have to be aware of that. Like we cannot say that the path will be very smooth and everything, right? You will definitely be facing challenges. The only thing that you have to do for yourself is have confidence and patience to build it out, right? In fact, it was convincing, in fact, investors also, that that women carry a lot of bags at a given point of time, was also a very hard task for us to show that it's a big market, right? But I'm very blessed that I have found the right investors and who trusted me and who have backed Zook and me, right? But all women entrepreneurs brands are not that lucky, right? Or women entrepreneurs brands which are focused on making products for women are not that lucky, right? So I don't mind the investors here, right? I do understand that for them the market is important, and how much growth they can see is important, and so on and so forth, right? So it is your responsibility also to what do you say, educate people around you, not only your employees but your investors, your friends, and everybody, that what you do and how does that has an impact, right? And so yeah, I would like I think I would end my monologue with the thing that I have been saying for last 10 minutes, that it is extremely important that you believe in yourself in whatever you do. It's not necessary that you have to be a woman entrepreneur or a leader or something like that, right? Anything that you do in your life, you have to have that confidence, right? And try to get as much help as possible. As a female, we feel that we can do everything by ourselves, right? But it does not work like that, right? We have to leverage the ecosystem that is around us, or if it's not there, then we should make an ecosystem around us which will help us in times of need, and which will celebrate the success with us, and also calm us when we have our failures, right? So my closing remark will only be this, that for like not only women entrepreneurs, for everybody, anything that you do in your life, the most important thing is that you have to have a very, very strong self belief in what you do, right? So thank you so much again for having me and hearing me so patiently. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Disha, for sharing your personal experiences, and really you've brought forth some new points, like take help, and also help others. Like it's like just apt to the title that we had for our event, that of the woman, by the woman, and for the woman. So absolutely, thank you so much, Disha. So I think we are coming close to the end of our event, and it was really an insightful discussion on the topic of challenges and opportunities for women entrepreneurs. And I would like to thank each of the speakers for their time, knowledge sharing, and for all the relevant points that you put forth. And yeah, it was very, very meaningful indeed. And I personally, on the behalf of the center, I personally thank each one of you for your valuable time and discussion. And I would also like to thank our sci-fi team, the backend team, Vikas and Sham, who have been helping us throughout in planning this event and organizing it so smoothly. And I would also like to thank our participants, the students, PGP students, PGPSM students, EFPM, FPM, and ECEL team students, and everybody outside IML, whom I cannot name right now. Thank you so much for attending it and making it so much more meaningful and relevant. And in the end, I would request everyone to please switch on their videos so that we can have a snapshot and keep a memory of the event with us. Is it done?
Yeah, it's done actually.
Okay, okay, great. So thank you so much for your participation, and take care and be safe, and bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your coordination.
Thank you, team. I am and the Sky-Fi team.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for organizing a relevant program. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you so much.